मन्वादि भारतम केचित आस्तिकादि तथोपरे तथोपरिचरादन्ये विप्रस सम्यक adhiyate. This is a verse which is recited in the Mahabharata tradition, which tells you that according to some people, and there is evidence for that, the text of the Mahabharata begins with the story of Manu. According to some others, it begins with that of Astika. And there are others who think that the story of Mahabharata starts actually with Uparichara. Now, all of us know a little bit about Manu or Astika, but we have never heard the word Uparichara. So let us start with who this Uparichara was. Now, of course, today's topic of the talk is Yojana Gandha Satyavati. So obviously, this Uparichara is in one way or other connected to her. Before I start to say anything, I must ask you to remember one thing. Whenever there is an academic talk or debate or anything on Mahabharata, in the scholastic circles of Sanskrit, people would only refer to the critical edition of Mahabharata, right? So I will stick to that edition. And if somebody tells me, but B.R. Chopra has shown this on TV, I don't think I would be interested in looking at that. So back to the critical edition prepared by Bhandarkar Oriental Institute. So once upon a time, there was this king. And though I started as a story, please remember the entire epic of Mahabharata is a story which is based on history. And therefore, I would call it historical story. All of it is true. The only thing is the way it is described is fanciful. This Uparichara king was very nice. He would always look at his people with great care, always work for their betterment. It was really a welfare state. If there are floods, he would go up. I'm purposely using this word. He would go up and then look and survey the flooded area. If there is excess rains, he would go and stand in the muddy fields. Once Indra asked him for some help in a war. Uparichara complied, and then of course he won. Indra was extremely happy. So when Uparichara left, Indra said, "Hey friend, I'll give you something which is of great use to you. It is a Sphatika Vimana." I'm purposely using these words. Sphatika, made out of Sphatika. Vimana. I would not translate the word Vimana because most of the times here it means, in other places it means a big palace. But here it somehow means something which goes up in the air and moves almost an aeroplane. I'll give you a Vimana, which is divya, divine, and which is all this time enjoyed only by the gods. So just see, he gives him a Vimana, and along with Vimana, Indra gives him two other things. One is Vaijayanti, that is a Tulasi Mala, and a Yashti. Yashti is a danda, staff. Uparichara comes back to his kingdom, and when he comes back, he brings this Yashti to the court. Mahabharata tells you it is from this moment that all the kings started using a danda when they came to the court. Just see, you don't know how old and ancient our traditions could be. But more important is this Uparichara, next day, he did Uchraya of that Yashti. Uchraya literally means rising up. He put that Yashti high up in the air, then worshipped it with Gandhapula Malyadi, sandalwood, flowers, garlands, etc., and said that whosoever does this puja every year will be benefited in a big way. Probably this is the beginning of what in Maharashtra we call Gudi Padwa or Varsha Pratipada. That is when, and even many other occasions when there used to be happy occasions, people used to have these Gudis. Anyway, this king had 5 sons and he had a wife named Girika, and he had gone hunting and he was thinking of Girika and he wanted to meet with her, but he could not, and his semen fell down, which was swallowed by a fish, female fish called Adrika. Okay, now this is a story, the mythology, but every word would have some meaning. Now this Adrika was caught in the net by a fisherman. Okay, that's perfectly all right. When the fisherman cut open the fish, he found a human twin. So this twin is born from King Uparichara and this Adrika, who was actually an Apsara who was cursed to be a fish till she gets baby or whatever. So that is how this twin was born. Surprisingly enough, in spite of having 5 sons already, Uparichara says, I want a son. And he says to the fisherman, you can keep the daughter, I don't think I want her. And this is how this daughter came to be adopted by the fisherman. And she is Satyavati. So you would know how Uparichara is very important when we try to understand Satyavati as a character, as a personality. Now, he was a fisherman. After this, Uparichara and Satyavati, they have absolutely no interaction. But I always feel, that in Mahabharata, there are some peculiar things. Like there are many twins. Satyavati and her twin brother is Virata. Remember Virata, the king of Matsya Desha, to whose kingdom the Pandavas incognito, Ajnatavas, had retired. So Satyavati and Virata are twins. Now, day after tomorrow, we will talk about Draupadi, and that Draupadi and Drishtadyumna are twins. Krupa and Krupi are twins. Nakula and Sahadeva. There are so many pairs of twins, and Satyavati just happens to be probably the first of them. So Satyavati is growing up in the household of that fisherman. Now just imagine, she is a born princess. I always wonder that maybe this king said, I don't want the daughter. But did he ever care for her feelings? She was a baby when this was done. She was an infant actually. But later on, when she came to know the truth, what must have happened to her psyche? How did she take that blow? I really cannot understand, but a lot of things that happened later on in her life can be related as a cause and effect to this incident in her childhood. So this fisherman, he brought her up with great love. Okay, I mean, he did not discriminate between Satyavati and his other children. But since she was staying in a fisherman's house rather, and since she was working with all of them, she smelled of fish. People who do not eat fish, they suddenly and always smell the smell of the fish and they do not like it. And somehow this was a very strong Matsya Gandha, the smell of the fish, which Satyavati always had, even after a bath. Therefore, she was also called Matsya Gandha. Matsya and Gandha. Many of you might have seen or at least remember a Marathi play called Matsya Gandha, which Vasanta Kanetkar had written, it was about Satyavati. In fact, that is the only, what should I say, piece of literature which is dedicated to Satyavati. And that is why I thought of talking about Satyavati, because in spite of being great, she is kind of neglected. Anyway, so Satyavati is called Matsyagandha. She's growing up, and please remember, her father is a king and her mother is an apsara. So she was very beautiful. Forget about the smell, but otherwise she was a very beautiful young girl, and she was now 16 or 17, and she would help her father to take, he was a ferryman, across the Yamuna, he would take passengers, and she would do that. She would help him. Dharmartham vaha ye tari. Once, a great Rishi named Parashara, whom we have heard even from other sources, he comes there and he asks her to take him across the river. She readily agrees, but in the boat, the Rishi is enamored by her. Parashara is very happy, attracted, and he says, "Will you enjoy with me?" And this poor girl, she doesn't understand much. She's small, young, innocent, and she said, "I don't mind, but I'm Pitru Vasha. I have to ask my father because my virginity will be lost. Kaumaryam, it will be lost. So what can I do about that?" Parashara says, "Don't worry, I'll take care of that." Then she says, "There are so many people roaming and wandering on the banks of Yamuna. They will see me with you." He said, "Don't worry about that either. I will create a curtain of fog around our boat so that no one will know what is happening." She readily agrees. And then they enjoy themselves in that boat, and she is pregnant. But one very important thing that happens is, Parashara is so pleased and so happy that he tells her that, "Okay, I'm very pleased. Ask for a blessing, ask for a boon." And you know what this young girl asks for? Just see how some things go deep into your mind. She says, "I always smell of fish. I don't like that. So can you make my body smell in a better way? Something, a perfumed body or something?" Parashara says, "No problem. I'll do that easily." And then from that day onwards, Gatra Uttamam, all her body got excellent smell, or let's say perfume. Okay? And this perfume was so sweet and so strong that people could smell her from a mile away. A mile, something like a mile, in those days, what called Yojana. And therefore, she got a name, Yojana Gandha. So a girl who was born with a given name as Vasavi, Satya, Kali, and later on Matsya Gandha is now known as Yojana Gandha, and hence the title Yojana Gandha Satyavati. So anyway, we all know the history that she gave birth to Vyasa, who was also the author of Mahabharata and at the same time a character in Mahabharata. We will see how. So she gave birth to him, and then she was again, helping her father and everything. The life went on normally. Not very far away, in the kingdom of Hastinapur, Shantanu was the king. He already had married Ganga. We know the story. And then he already has a son who is Devavrata. This Devavrata is now 36 years old, and Shantanu had stayed single for 36 years. The moment Ganga left him and disappeared, Shantanu is alone. He has not married. But that day, he came to the banks of Yamuna and he had a wonderful divine smell from somewhere. So he followed in that direction and he found this girl, Satyavati. Again, she was matured now, beautiful, smelling good, all the characteristics of a woman to fall in love with. Shantanu fell in love with her and said, "Will you marry me?" Again, she said the same thing, that you should ask my father, Pitruvasha. Now, this time, both Satyavati and her father had become very, what should I say, practical, shrewd. And they had decided that no, we won't let things happen the way it happened last time with Parashara. Because Parashara, after a while, when the boy was old enough, took him away also. So poor Satyavati was left with neither a husband nor a child. And now they realized that he is the king of Hastinapur. So he said, the fisherman, of course she will marry you, but on one condition. Shantanu agreed. He said, okay, whatever the condition, I am the emperor, I can do anything. The fisherman said, my grandchild, that is Satyavati's son, will be the king of Hastinapur. They know about Devavrata, right? And Shantanu flatly refuses. Please remember, many people think, and it is commonly believed, it's a popular belief, that Shantanu agreed to that and therefore all the things happened. No, he did not. He went back home empty handed, so to say, and he was forlorn, sad, lonely, and he even started losing weight. Everything is given in the critical edition. Devavrata saw this. And he didn't know. He thought, is something wrong with my father's health? And he asked the senior priest, Purohita, about what the matter was. And then Purohita had to tell him the truth. He said, there was this girl and she wanted her son to be the king, but you are the perfect heir to the throne, and your father did not accept that and did not marry her. And so he is losing weight with black circles under his eyes and whatnot. Bhishma said, okay. Now just see, Bhishma himself is 36 years old, that is of marriageable age, right? But he comes to this bank of Yamuna and he talks to Satyavati and her father, of course. He tells them, I know what has happened. And I promise you that I will not be the king after Shantanu. It will be your son who will be the king. As I said, these people have become wiser now. In Marathi, there is a beautiful proverb which says, I mean, in English, you say once bitten, twice shy, but in Marathi, it is better said. We say, दुधानी तोंड भाजलं की ताक सुद्धा फुंकून प्यावं. So they are taking all precautions. They are always on the alert. And Satyavati says, okay, Devavrata, you say you won't be the king. What about your children? You will marry, and since you are the elder son, your children will be a rightful Yuvaraja, heir to the throne. Bhishma, without hesitating for a moment, immediately replied, in that case, I won't marry at all. If I don't marry, I won't have a child. If I don't have a child, your son can be the king. And then, first and most important, then you can marry my father and you can have a child and he will be the king. Surprisingly, both Satyavati and her father agreed to that. I mean, it's one thing to be greedy about power. It's one thing to be wanting to have wealth or even to get married and all. But for that, what price are you making someone else pay? Why should Devavrata remain unmarried? I can even understand that he will not be the king. That is okay, maybe, perhaps. But that he will not marry, and he is probably even a slightly elder than her or younger than her. They never mention that, but of the same age. And still, he has no qualms about that. She said, okay, if you promise not to marry, then I'm willing to marry your father. So was she marrying Shantanu out of love, out of affection? Or was she marrying Shantanu so that she will wield the power? A question which is worth asking ourselves. Anyway, then Bhishma takes her to Hastinapur. Shantanu and Satyavati get married and they have two sons. The first one is the elder one is Chitrangada, the second one is Vichitravirya. Now this Chitrangada, both when Chitrangada and Vichitravirya are still small boys, Shantanu dies of old age. So just imagine how old he must have been. Then Bhishma, he takes advice from Satyavati. This sentence is very important. According to the advice given by Satyavati, Satyavatya Mate Netu, this comes at least 3 to 4 times in Mahabharata. Every time there is a problem, every time there is a crisis, this Bhishma would ask Satyavati about what is the next step to be taken. By the way, this Devavrata, when he takes this horrible vow that I will never marry, is called Bhishma because that is how the Bhishma Pratigna goes. Bhishma is the horrible vow of staying celibate. So Bhishma would always ask her, and she said, okay, that's fine. Just we will coronate Chitrangada, he's the elder one, and you and I, we would take care of the ruling. We will take care of the kingdom. Bhishma says, yes, Chitrangada is coronated, but very shortly, Chitrangada dies in a war on the banks of river Hiranvati. When he dies, Vichitravirya, the description given in the Mahabharata is very nice. It says, Balam aprapta yavvanam. He was so small, he had not even reached his youth. Bhishma again asks Satyavati for the advice, but Satyavati always had this ambition of being Rajamata, because she could not play the role of Rani, Maharadni for long because Shantanu died. And now she is dreaming of being a Rajamata. So she says, okay, then again, let Vichitravirya be the king and you and I, we will take care of the kingdom. No problems. So Bhishma does that. Nowhere does Satyavati feel that this man has sacrificed so much in his life for my pleasure. Why don't I make him a king for a change? She doesn't. And then this one also dies. Vichitravirya dies because he has Yakshman. Yakshma is something like TB, a very high fever and all, and he dies. Oh God. Before that, when Chitrangada and Vichitravirya both are living, Satyavati, who is always looking at the Kuru dynasty and the Kuru Rajya, she tells Bhishma, my boys have grown up. We must get them married. And so, this story, I won't go into details, but therefore, Bhishma goes to Kashi Raja, and in his chariot, he brings 3 daughters of Kashi Raja, Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika. And they happily jump into his chariot, thinking that here is a man, Bhishma, who had taken the Bhishma Pratigna of not marrying, But now he wants to marry the three of us. So they were happy. On the way, they come to know what the situation is. And then Amba, as you know, she gets down and goes to her lover. We won't go into that part. And only Ambika and Ambalika come to Hastinapur, and they are married to Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. So both the sons, they were married and they had wives. But of course, as I said, Chitrangada died in a war and Vichitravirya died of Yakshman. Now, think of the situation. Here is the dynasty of Kurus. There is Satyavati. Bhishma is there, but he is always sidelined, sidetracked. He is not in the main picture, mainstream rather. And there are two daughters-in-law, Ambika and Ambalika. Unless and until they have a son, Kuru Vamsha will not go ahead, which is obvious. You can't help that. And the husbands are dead. Both of them are widows. Now, what to do? There are many ways, when a son could be adopted or produced, and which is sanctioned by our Dharma Shastras in those days. And one of them is called Niyoga. Niyoga is a process by which a particular man, whomsoever you decide on, comes and stays with a woman and leaves her when she gets pregnant. Okay, so his job is only to see to it that she is pregnant. Now, here comes the scheming and plotting on Satyavati's part. You know what she says to Bhishma? Bhishma, see, we must have a heir for Kuru Vamsha, right? Bhishma agrees, of course. Then she says, you are a stepbrother of Chitrangada and Vichitravirya, right? Because they both shared the same father, Shantanu. So you can come for Niyoga. He says, no, I cannot marry. Even on this small thing like Niyoga, I will not do some such thing. And the sentences he uses there are amazing. He says, even if you, even if all the five elements, Pancha Mahabhuta, they change their nature, Bhishma will not break his pratinya. Very well said. But I'm surprised. This Satyavati does not hesitate in asking him this. I mean, just for your selfishness, he should not marry. For your selfishness, now he should marry. What kind of logic is that? So she is only thinking of her, and more than her, she is thinking of the Kuru Vamsha and taking the kingdom ahead. So Bhishma tells her, you can do one thing. Now just see, it is 2000 years back, So do not try to use our moral sticks and measure their standards. So he says, suppose we bring a Brahmin who is wise and Tejasvi, as he says, and give him some money, in lieu of which he will stay in the palace till both the queens get pregnant. The moment he says that, Satyavati suddenly thinks of a Brahmin whom she has given birth, and that is Vyasa, right? Vyasa is Brahmin because Parashara is Brahmin. And so she says, oh, but it feels very shy, embarrassed. And she says to Bhishma, sit, I'll tell you the whole story. And that is when she narrates the entire story of Vyasa Janma to Bhishma. Bhishma says, then no problem. I have no problem. Because if you look at this, even Vyasa is a stepbrother of Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. They, three of them share the same mother, who is Satyavati. Now, how to convince the daughter-in-law? She goes to Ambika first. she's the elder one, and she tells her, see, you must have a son. Otherwise, Kuru dynasty will end right here. So, even the daughter-in-law knows about Niyoga and all. So Satyavati says, we will have Niyoga. But Ambika does not accept. Then Satyavati says, don't do that. Putra Gruddhini is the word which is used in case of Satyavati, who very much wanted a son to be there in the Kuru dynasty. And she implores Ambika. She requests her, pleases her, and ultimately wins her, probably orders her to have Niyoga. And then she tells her, okay, retire to your bedroom, and at night, your Devru, your brother-in-law, will come. She's not telling a lie. She said, your Devar will come. She's already talked to Vyasa, and Vyasa has agreed because it is Matru Ajna. He has agreed to that. This poor Ambika, lying on the bed, she is wondering. These are the words from the critical edition. She is wondering, will it be Bhishma? Because Bhishma is her Devara. Or who else would it be from Kuru family? She is wondering about that when Vyasa enters. And Vyasa, as described by himself, is a dark man. He is called Krishna Dvaipayana, dark, not fair at all. He had long hair all over his body, and he was not a good looking man. In fact, Vyas tells his mother that wait for a while, let me get cleaned up, let both the wives get used to my appearance, and then we will have Niyoga. But she has no time to wait. She's become impatient. And so that same night, he goes to Ambika. As we know, Ambika apparently she closed her eyes because she could not stand it. And the son which they had, Dhritarashtra, was blind. When he was blind, then Satyavati had to do something about it. She is the only one. She would again consult with Bhishma and ask what is to be done now. I would ask Ambalika. Then Ambalika, same thing, Even she wasn't happy to receive Vyasa at all. And she was pale with fear and pale with nausea kind of a thing. So the son which they got was pale from the birth, and his name was Pandu, anemic. The word itself means somebody who is suffering from anemia. Satyavati was totally shocked. Now what to be done? Then at that time she thinks that why don't I call Vyasa again and have another Niyoga with Ambika? Yeah, Vyasa agrees, he comes there. But Ambika, like Satyavati herself, has become wiser now for the second time. She says, okay, I'm ready. And at night, in her palace, instead of she herself lying on the bed, she sends one of her dasis, maid servants, properly decked up like a queen and all, and then sends that dasi. And the dasi is happy to no extent, because a person like great sage Vyasa is going to be her husband for at least one night. And therefore, she does what we call Samarpana, and they have a wonderful son whose name is Vidura. So just see the story of the Janma, the birth of Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura. Unfortunately, Dhritarashtra could not become the king because he was visually impaired. Vidura could not be the king because he was a Dasi Putra. And Pandu had to be the king because he was the only one who could move around and all. So in spite of having 3 sons in the Kuru family, Satyavati's desire of being a Rajamata could not be fulfilled. I really feel sorry for her. But this happens with many women, who are ambitious. Her ambition was not wrong. Her ambition was not misplaced. But this was something which no one liked probably. I mean, none of the women like Ambika and Ambalika did not like. And there is one word called nemesis. Nemesis is the punishment which you get sooner or later when you have done something wrong. And the nemesis of Satyavati can clearly be seen in the text of Mahabharata or in the story of Mahabharata. After this, Satyavati goes in the background. Okay, she is not there at all. I mean, once in a while somebody would mention that he went and paid her his respects to Satyavati, but that's about all. She doesn't actively do anything because her dream of being a Rajamata is totally shattered, is completely shattered, and so she goes in the background, so to say. Now, the next reference to Satyavati is found. You remember the story when both the Kauravas and Pandavas they gathered together to show off their skills in archery. Drona arranges that, and then he wants to flaunt his students. Actually, it's something like a graduation ceremony, maybe. But this is the place, this is the time when Satyavati is specifically mentioned. Okay, that she was there. We know the story, Kunti fainted looking at Karna and all that. So anyway, this is where Satyavati is last mentioned. After that, we don't know what happened to Satyavati. Vyasa, when Pandu dies, so just imagine, her two sons had already died, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. Now her grandson Pandu also dies. We know that story. We won't look at that story now. He also dies. So what kind of grief she must be going through? Instead of fulfilling the ambition, what is happening is something which is not good for her. She is always a sad and sorry person. And then when Pandu dies, Vyasa tells her that, oh Matar, she is his mother. He says, now the only thing that you want to see, you have to see, is the destruction of Kuru Vamsha. This is his prophecy, Vyasa's prophecy, which he shares with his mother Satyavati. And Satyavati is so shaken. She has already suffered so much. First of all, rejection by the biological father, then this kind of small episode with Parashara, then Shantanu's wedding, marriage, everything. I mean, whatever happened, so many important events took place in her life that she had had enough, and she decided to retire to the forest. Vanaprastha. We just know that in one stray verse, shloka, Mahabharata tells you that Satyavati retired to Vanaprastha along with her daughters-in-law, that is Ambika and Ambalika. I wonder whether at least at that time she had asked them, would you like to join me? Or maybe she just ordered them, just like she ordered them to have Niyoga. She ordered them to marry her sons, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. She must have ordered them because they were younger to her. But they also went with her, and that's all we know about Satyavati. So this Satyavati, what is so special about her? I feel, had it not been for Satyavati, Kuru Vansha and the story of Mahabharata would have never gone ahead, right? Had Bhishma married and then he had sons, then the history would have taken an entirely different turn. But whatever we know now as Mahabharata, the history, happened only because what Satyavati did. She was a peculiar person, As I said, there are so many peculiarities in her nature. First of all, in her destiny also, like I said, she's one of the twins. Then secondly, she was abandoned by the father. And this is not a very uncommon feature in Mahabharata. As we know, Karna was abandoned by his mother. His mother himself, Kunti, she was given away by Shurasena, her biological father, to Kunti Bhoja in adoption. But she always had this feeling that I am rejected by my father. Karna was like that. Krupa and Krupi, the twins, you probably know that they were found on the banks of river Yamuna, in a winnowing basket, and they were picked up by Shantanu and brought up by him. We don't know who their lineage at all. So there are so many instances where such things have happened. Secondly, this girl who was rightfully a princess, daughter of a king Vasu Uparichara, was brought up in a poor household of a fisherman. This also has happened in Mahabharata so many times. For example, Karna, Kunti's son, Surya's son, brought up in the house of a Suta, Adhiratha, a Rathakar, or Krishna even for that matter. He was the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, and he was brought up as a herdsman, as a Gopala by Nanda and Yashoda. Such things are frequently seen in Mahabharata. Probably in that social structure, this was kind of accepted. What's the time like? So, this Satyavati, who is rightfully named in Mahabharata as Yojana Gandha, I would call her Niyojana Gandha. Niyojana is planning. And she not only thought of everything, but she planned everything, bringing Amba and Ambika and Ambalika, having somebody for Niyoga. She, when it comes to the Kuru Kula Hita, this is the word she uses, Kuru Kula Hita, she is ready to go against the stream and take any action which she has done many times. So she is Niyojana Gandha, and at the same time, she is also Prayojana Gandha. Prayojana is Hetu, aim, goal, and all that she has done is never for her own selfish motives. She has done everything for the betterment, for the continuity of the dynasty of Kuru Vamsha. And therefore, I use the word nemesis. It is something which is unavoidable. I know that sometimes you do get punished for what you have done, but I feel sorry for Satyavati. And I would ask you to read more about Satyavati, either from the original text or from the translations of those texts, because that is important. Unless and until you know Satyavati, who is there in the background all throughout Mahabharata, but whom we have forgotten. Like I said, there are so many novels and plays on Draupadi, Karna, and Gandhari, and Kunti, and all those. But I have, except for that Matsyagandha, which I mentioned in the beginning, there is absolutely no other, at least Marathi book that I have read about Satyavati. In fact, in that play, Marathi play, there is a beautiful song in the mouth of Satyavati, when at the end of her life, she is completely, what word should I use? She's completely defeated. And in that defeat, she sings a song. And even though it is Marathi, I'm going to quote it. So before that, for the benefit of others, I will give you the meaning. Let me see the words. She says, Artha Shunya Bhase Mazaha Kalaha Jivanacha. She says, Kalaha Jivana. You can understand the meaning. This entire conflict and fighting with the life, is useless. Artha Shunya. There is absolutely no point in that. Dharma, Nyaya, Niti, Sara, Khel, Kalpanecha. You talk about big words. Dharma, righteousness. Nyaya, justice. Niti, morality. All these are only ideas. You never find them in real life. These are the uh, words spoken by a defeated Kuru Stri. So let us, now I would also read the first verse. ध्यास एक हृदयी धरुनी स्वप्न रंगवावे वीज त्यावरी तो पडुनी शिल्प कोसळावे दैव जात एकच दिसतो नियम या जगाचा अर्थशून्य भासे मजहा कलह जीवनाचा. धन्यवाद.